to close the gap between our English language learners and their white counterparts.
And in doing so, then we want to increase AG completion rate for these kids, increase their college matriculation, and also increase high school graduation rates.
I was thinking about going to college, but I didn't know like how to go to college, how to apply.
When I came here, I basically didn't know anything. I didn't know English. I didn't know how the school system works.
Because English is their second language, sometimes they're not able to express it. So they don't know, how to ask.
My legacy students know where to contact me, so if there are any issues, questions, or concerns that they have in any particular subject, they know where to search that.
It's a great way to meet a lot of people, to know about this school.
We have almost 300 students who are second language learners at this site. Many of them are coming from backgrounds and experiences where they don't even know what they don't know, so we want to provide that information for you, provide sort of the ability to dream.
I thought I would be like my father, who was like a truck driver. But after going to high school, I found my passion for computer science and programming. So now I know what I want to do.
For the legacy program, they help you a lot.
They help me with scholarships, with financial aid.
It ranges from field trips to academic intervention meetings with our students. We also hold parent nights where we share information about graduation and QG requirements.
Help you going through college applications, and it actually it's really good because I didn't know how to get into college because I'm not from here.
We have an increase into the students from outside the country. And this year we were able to help out 2 students that came in here as a 9th graders and were able to make it an A through G.
It's something they definitely want to get into. It's helping me out. I barely started this senior year, but it's helped me out with my career choice and everything. It helps you to explore the colleges.
I see it as an opportunity to see the outside world. Like, it's not just RCC, it's more stuff out there for you to go to.
Like more options, like which one you go is going to be better for you.
Giving me more than equal opportunity, just like any other person.
You get to look at the choices for your career, what you really want to do in that, and it helped me come up with my choice to become a fireman, and it's helped me out greatly.
We are noticing a difference with the kids themselves because they're feeling like they have someone to go to, they have personal application.
It's nice to have a person that kind of understands and helps and motivates and encourages you to find a path.
Yeah, honestly, didn't think college was me at all. I wasn't planning to go to college, but legacy, there it is.
And as we develop students from different cultures and backgrounds to take on the world stage and to be prepared, we have to do that with a mind and intention to do it for every student, regardless of their race, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of any of those things.
They show me that it's something that really can happen. You really can go to college.
Okay, so the Heritage Program and the Legacy Program is at each site, so it's not specific to RVS. So they have like North, Pomona, all of the high schools. Next year, we're going to try to get together and have some opportunities for our students to grow amongst the different high schools, so that's exciting. But each site does have a heritage contact, which is me for RVS. I'm just here to support your students. If they need, support socially, their emotional health, academic health, all of those items, they can come to me. They have someone, a familiar face that I'm hoping, and I'm hoping that I'm pretty open to where they feel comfortable coming to me with their issues. Our legacy contact will be Miss Alberry next year, so she will be in contact with our legacy students. Another thing that we want to bring to our students is, some community resources, people outside our classrooms that can come in and help mentor our students. So tonight we do have a guest speaker, Mr. Norman Coulter will be speaking tonight. He is an Inglewood and South Central Los Angeles native and a former competitive basketball player, turned speaker, author, educator, and transformation facilitator. At 8 years old, he began a life-changing 900 days of being bused from his home to wealthy suburban schools, 1.5 hours away. This experience introduced Norman to the effects of racial, political, and socio-economic conflict on students. As a public speaker and author, he helps organizations use self-leadership or self-influence to build trust between individuals and improve performance. And we have Mr. Norman Coulter.
Thank you. Good to be here with you all. I'm not a Riverside native, but I taught in the Riverside Unified School District for about 7 years. Started at Ramona High School and ended up teaching at Earhart and ultimately at King High School. And now I teach, currently I still teach, but I teach in Bonita Unified School District down in San Dimas. But as Ms. Hebert said, I am originally from inner city of Los Angeles, so I was born, I'm sorry, standing behind things is weird for me, so I will probably move around a lot and make you really nervous and come really close to you at times, except for the people in the back. I make students nervous as much as possible. That's just how I keep their attention, with their phones in their hand most of the time, right? I always tell them, I was like, man, were you born with that? Because I'm gonna ask your mom. What's going on? I'm gonna ask your mom if you have a phone in your hand. You always go, no. But, so I'm originally from the inner cities of Los Angeles, and one of the things that people asked me about being, I was born in Inglewood, and then at age 8, we moved to South Central, and then we moved to Compton briefly. And in those first 14 years of my life, what I learned was that you it's hard to go from an environment that you understand to an environment where nobody understands you. And my first principal was my uncle. He actually, we celebrated his life yesterday at a funeral. And in a moment, I'm going to show you a slide that kind of tells a little bit of the story of how I experienced education as a young man growing up. But as I said a minute ago, a lot of people ask me, they say, hey, you're from a tough place, right? I mean, how many people here, anybody here from LA? Any part of LA? All right. So you probably have just as many stories as I do, right? And the thing about it was that I didn't have a lot of people who really could relate. You know, I mean, I could spend the night at my friends' houses at the school I went to, but they never came in. I don't know why. They never came to spend the night in the hood. You know, I don't know what it was, right? But one of the things I have been able to tell people over the years is that knowing how to talk to yourself ends up being one of the most crucial things you can possibly do. There's actually a field of study called self-leadership. And I didn't know that that was a thing when I was a young man. But what I learned was that there wasn't always going to be enough representation in my classrooms at my school. I had coaches because I played sports, but even most of my coaches weren't Latino or black. They didn't look like me. They weren't from the places where I was from, except at the lower levels when I was playing Pop Warner and playing basketball at the neighborhood parks. But tonight I wanted to talk about something that might sound a little strange. And the title of the talk tonight is just sliding into your own DMs. How many of you know what a DM is? All right? I'm not crossing any lines. I'm not going to ask you if you slid into DMs before, because that can get me in trouble, and you. And I didn't come to do that tonight. But what I did want to say is I think DMs, direct messages, are a great metaphor. Because one of the things that we have going on all the time, from the time we get up, unless you're different than me, from the first time I get up, I usually think about failure. Some form of imperfection, something about me that I have to fight against in order to get out of bed and actually be productive. And it doesn't matter what you've accomplished, I've just found that that's kind of a common thread. And so how do we do that? How do we execute self-talk? I'm going to ask for another little bit of informal crowd participation. If you talk to yourself like I do, raise your hand. I talk to myself all the time, right? And not just in the shower, not just in the car, not just because somebody cut you off. Sometimes we threaten our children in our minds, right? And then sometimes we throw chocolates, right? Sometimes they get the smoke, right? But here's something that I've learned, right? So this is from left to right. That's me at about 9 years old. That's Inglewood Parks. That's Darby Park over in Inglewood, California, circa 1985, somewhere there. And even though I'm holding that basketball, and I look maybe like a young basketball player, I was horrible. I was absolutely trash. And one of the reasons I wasn't good is because, quite honestly, nobody taught me. So I would go to basketball camps at that park, and I experienced a lot of people who expected me to know what to do without having taught me. So I would have grown men who were, why can't you do that? Why can't you dribble? And they would put the number of points that every player had scored on the door of the gym after every game. So after week 1, who scored the most points, right? Week 2, week 3. And by week 4, I still hadn't scored at all. I remember being at the bottom of that list. And you know what I did? You know what the voices said to me? This is not a place where you can be successful. Some of the same messages that our children get and that we've gotten over the years by being in maybe a math class where we didn't understand the content. I teach English language learners. I run our ELD program in my school, but I also teach honors English. But one of the things that I find is vitally important is that my English language learners have stories that are extremely interesting. I had a student this year who, I'm not joking, he walked here from Guatemala. He told me, I asked him, I said, dígame su historia. I wanted to know the whole thing. He told me. And I believed him, and it took him 2 months to walk here from Guatemala. And I was floored. And I've never seen anybody work as hard as I said. Never seen anybody work as hard as him. When I was that age, though, I found that my messaging was probably similar to his. I can't do it, nobody's willing to teach me, I quit. And so from 1985 to about 1990, I didn't touch a basketball. I was athletic, but I gave up on it. What reversed my self-talk? I encountered some mentors. I used to go to a church in Los Angeles, and there was one guy who was like a big brother to all of us. And he would throw us in the van, and we would spend the night at his house. He would feed us. But we'd be up at 1 in the morning playing wiffle ball. I mean, he was kind of a big kid. His wife didn't like it too much. Their story is a different subject for a different day. But he was just there for us. He was our big brother. And so what he would do is he would have me out there, and he'd say, hey, you got greatness in you. You don't see it, but I do. So I'm going to make you play basketball. Because that's what we do. That's what he said, you know. And so what he would do is I lived across the street from a Catholic church that had basketball courts. And Derek would pick us up and take us over there, and we would play 12, 1, 2 in the morning until Monsignor, the priest, would come out and say, hey, you guys gotta leave. People are trying to sleep. And I was so thankful because I didn't want to play. He would make me play 2-on-2, full court. And I would be playing against these 2 guys who went to the church who were varsity players, and they would just beat them. You know, it's not like us. It would be Derek and me. And we played to 100. But he kept on, and not just Derek, but actually rewind the clock. And this is relevant as of yesterday, so I'll just say this. And I'm only walking up here to bring some attention to this great lady. Yesterday I was at my uncle's memorial, and I see these women leaving at the end of it. You know how you go to the funeral and afterwards you go eat? You know, my tradition, we call that a repast. You go and I was seeing cousins who had flown in from Arkansas and the South and all these things. And as she's leaving, she says, did you ever go to your uncle's school? And I said, yes. Actually did attend my uncle's school. He was my principal, kindergarten to 3rd grade. She said, Billy, what year did you get to that school? The name of the school was Clyde Woodworth Elementary. And I said, I don't know, 1979 to 1984. She said, I was there. Who was your kindergarten teacher? I said, Mrs. Bernard. She was like, I knew her. She said, who was your 1st grade teacher? I said, Mrs. Taylor. She was like, short hair? I was like, yeah. She said, I knew her too. She said, how about 2nd grade? I said, Mrs. Bivens. She said, I'm Mrs. Bivens. This was yesterday. I lit up like a little kid. I haven't seen this woman since I was 7 years old. And I still remembered what color her car was. I remembered how she used to protect us when 2 kids would be would be bullying another kid, how she would defend the kid who was being victimized. I remembered that. I remembered how when we came in from recess and when we came in from lunchtime, she would turn off the lights and say, put your heads down because you guys are too wound up. You need to relax. because she knew that many of us had trauma at home. That somebody had an emotionally abusive, had a mother who maybe had a domestic abuse situation at home, who was dealing with poverty, kids who weren't eating every day. She knew them. And so she took her time in giving us a chance to catch up. I really believe that Mrs. Bivens all those years ago thought, I can't teach students who don't feel safe, right? And so these messages, even as of yesterday, I begin to remember that talking to yourself is a very intentional thing. Everybody in here, if I ask you about some negativity, usually what happens is people can tell me all the negative things that have happened to them more easily than they can tell me about what they like about themselves. And I try this out all the time. I mean, I can do it with you right now. What's your favorite thing about today? 10 seconds, talk to the people at your table. What's your favorite thing about today? 10 seconds, go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time. Raise your hand if you thought of something that you were able to share. Your favorite thing about today. All right? All the adults in the room. Right now, if you felt annoyed by someone, anyone today, I want you to talk about that. If somebody annoyed you or you were irritated by anything, 10 seconds, go. She said you, I think that's a relative. 4, 3, 2, 1. Raise your hand if you were able to identify at least one annoying thing about today. 4 hands. I think y'all are referring to each other. I don't know. The self-talk over the years for me wasn't easy to come by. When I look back at my own history, I realized there was no one to teach me how to do it, which is why I'm talking about this tonight. I believe that the reason I was able to move on from that moment to this moment, this is me in college. These 2 pictures. I made that shot, I promise you. He fouled me and I went to the free throw line. And I missed the free throw. But I made the shot, right? But between Mrs. Bivens' voices all those years ago, and Derek, who's not pictured here, and my mother, and ultimately so many of the other people who had something positive to say to me, I had to learn how to affirm myself. When we talk about something like self-talk that's going to move you in a direction that's going to help you achieve goals, how many of you, I know we have some graduates in here, right? Some seniors. Can I see seniors' hands? Seniors, right? So we have a few, and whether you go to college or not, because college is not the end goal. The idea is that I share with most students is I tell them, I say, hey, whether you are at odds with your parents or not, if your parents get on your nerves, it's not the first time. People from the past, in fact, your parents' probably got on their nerves. But here's the thing. Your parents want something for you that they can't describe most of the time. They try to put it into words, but they want more from you. Some of the things that get in the way of that, though, look like this, and I'll just go over a few of them. There's a whole list of 11 that come from some research-based material. That's not new, but it has to do with how do you lead yourself. Now, most of us want more followers on our socials, Insta, TikTok, so forth and so on. We want likes. But unless you really plan to be an influencer, you don't need the likes. You don't need the likes. Here's one of them. Here's one of the most dysfunctional thinking patterns that many of us subscribe to. Extreme thinking. When you see things as black or white, in other words, if total perfection isn't achieved, then a perception of failure is the result, right? And oftentimes this is what's presented to us, even when our students are good students. Maybe even when we were students. I know as an athlete, perfection was set as this mythical, it was like, this is the goal. But I've never seen a perfect person. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, one of my faves of all time. GOAT. 5 championships in 20 years. Divide 5 by 20. And That's not even close to a failing percentage in a classroom. Same thing with Michael Jordan. 6 championships in all those seasons. LeBron, 4 in 19 seasons. In baseball, batting 300. Hitting a baseball 3 times out of 10 at-bats is considered a championship level. But when it comes to the classroom, we tend to think of ourselves as imperfect because we got a 60% on a test. Or because we, maybe in the first part, if we're an adult, maybe the first part of life, as a parent, we didn't parent the way we wanted to. But it's extreme thinking, and it can lead us to depressing ways of existence. Overgeneralizing things. When we take a specific failure or a negative result and we say, oh man, this is the pattern of life. I'll be vulnerable because I don't know any other way to talk about it. In my world, most of my uncles were incarcerated. In fact, I was the first person that anybody knew in my family to get to college, but I didn't have anyone to show me the way. So my senior year in high school, I had about a 4.1 grade point average, but I hadn't applied to college, and it was April. I was about to graduate in 2 months. And the college that was recruiting me, they said, we don't see your name in any of the college, we don't see you admitted. Is that a mistake? I was like, I thought you recruited me, I didn't need to apply. I never even filled out an application because I didn't know how. I didn't have anyone to show me. So it would have been easy for me, when I stood over my buddy DJ's casket in 1987 and I saw where the 12 gauge blew off his head, I didn't understand. I thought that would be me, not because I wanted a gangster life. I was far from a gangster, but every day was me checking 100 yards in front of me, looking in every direction, trying to make sure that I wasn't a victim, because I had been jacked at 9-point jack. Sorry, that means when somebody comes up to you unexpectedly and they surround you and they make it impossible for you to escape and they take something. I had guys take the shoes off my feet. And I had to learn how to navigate violence on a daily basis. So I stood over my friends' caskets and I thought, it's only a matter of time. That was me overgeneralizing, me thinking that there wasn't a way out. Because I saw 2 guys make it out, there's no way 3 are. But I had this magic ride every day called Permit with Transportation. And it was the way by which my mom managed to get me out of the neighborhood every day. Now, this isn't the case for everybody, and everyone can't do this. But for me, it helps to change my overgeneralizing. Because every day I took a bus ride an hour and a half, one direction, from South Central Los Angeles to Woodland Hills, California. And basically, Woodland Hills is a lot like, I guess, the area by Pollock. I don't know. Right out this way. And the people didn't talk like me, they didn't look like me, but it was an opportunity. And it allowed me to see something else. Mental filtering. I don't want to waste time going through all of these, but I will say with mental filtering, this third one, emphasizing a single negative detail. Sorry about the typo. English teachers should know better than that. That's my fault. But distorting all other aspects, there's another typo, of one's perception of reality. So in other words, when I take one negative detail and I say because of this negative, I can't succeed, that's actually dysfunctional thinking. And I think that one of the things I'm most proud of about the people in this room, both the parents and the students, is that you are challenging that. But it is not an accident. If you understand that it is not functional to take one negative and to accentuate it so that all you see is that on a daily basis. Whenever somebody tells you that they're proud of you, it's like when your mom, if you this is personal, my mom used to always say, you're handsome. And I'd be, really? She said, oh yeah, you're handsome. You're a handsome young man. I said, then how come these girls don't want to go to the dance with me? Huh? I didn't want to. You'd have to do your homework to understand what a jerry curl is, but these girls wanted guys with jerry curls. Slicked hair, right? Lots of products. Me, I was just a skinny, bald-headed athlete. But my mom, and so I would disqualify the positive. Your mom's comments don't count. Your grandparents tell you you're smart. They tell you you can be president of these United States, and you don't believe it. Well, I say, we have to understand that according to Burns, 1999, his first name is David, he's a researcher, and he says that mentally disqualifying positive experiences from having any relevance or importance is a great way to end up in a state of depression. It's a great way to end up in a state where you no longer strive for things that are in your reach, even if it means you're the first person to do it. right? The last one, labeling and mislabeling, is about describing yourself, others, or events with negatives. And people talk to themselves like this all the time. This one I won't ask for a show of hands. But I know that the majority of people that I've ever taught, and many of my colleagues who work with me, struggle with this. The first thing out of their mouth is a negative. I'm the worst. I used to see it in the gym because in basketball, everything is immediate. You know, if you fail, everybody sees it. We used to lose games sometimes, not that many, we did okay. But we would lose games and I would go to the mall and think everybody knew. You know, I'd go through a drive-through and I would think, man, they know we lost. I'd be so embarrassed. Nobody was thinking about you. Have you ever worn the same shirt twice in 1 week and thought everybody knew about it? They know. They don't care. But these are the things that we fall victim to. And it's an example of how our thinking can lead us astray. With two more back. But one thing I can promise you is that there is a way out of this. So one of the things that this quote is from a book that I released recently, and I'm not trying to promote myself here. But I came to a point in my life where I realized that more important than anything else, I have to influence myself with my beliefs. And I would ask you guys tonight, what is it that you believe? When is the last time you really investigated your beliefs? Really thought about what anchors you? Because that's what will allow you to lead yourself. And sometimes, here's the hard part, right? We all want social affirmation. We want people, I don't know, some people like to be by themselves. But what I find is that when we're young, we want to belong. Now me, I was afraid to join a gang, but I wanted to belong so bad. I had one sister who was older than me. I had a little sister who was 11 years younger than me. My big sister didn't live with us, and my little sister was too small. I had to protect her. My brother wouldn't be born until I was age 17, so we were all spread out. Why am I telling you this? Because I had every reason to succumb to the gang lifestyle. At least it would have given me protection. Because I wasn't just getting jumped, I was actually having to fight, and I had, every reason to seek protection. But I thought about this one piece. I simply didn't believe in rolling the dice on my future. That was the piece. That was the thing I couldn't get away from. That and that my 5'2" mom said, join a gang, don't come home. And she was serious. She was serious. And I was like, what would it cost me? And that's what I ask young people all the time now. What does it cost you to have the friends that you have? Where do they lead you? Why do you follow them? And if you want followers on TikTok and Insta, if you weren't you, would you follow you? These are the questions I ask. Because if you're not following, if you're not worth following, then why are you asking people to follow? Have you led yourself yet? Have you influenced yourself? So I made this the top priority. And I made a decision when I was younger with help, because it wasn't all for me, to try to reverse the thinking. I said, you know what? If it kills me, I'm gonna do something different. Even though sometimes from some of the closest people to me, and I'm wrapping up here, some of the closest people to me would often say things like this: act like you got some common sense. Negative talk. You're so lazy, you're too young to be tired. Anybody ever heard that? You don't pay no bills. Why are you so tired? But you know what I was tired from? Picking up cats off the ground in my neighborhood. The smell of urine in the alleys where I grew up. Checking my colors because you could not wear red where I lived, but you couldn't wear blue where my grandmother lived. That's traumatic to have to think about these things. Nobody jogged in my neighborhood. You saw somebody jogging where I lived, they were running from something. That's real, right? How about this one? I never seen someone like you graduate. Your brother didn't graduate. We don't get C's in this house. My mom said, the only C I want to see on the report card is your last name. Right? But she understood math. She said math was tough, so that was okay. Why can't you be more like your brother or sister? You just look like your father, or you look just like your father. It's personal. There are things that happen to us. Sometimes we say the things, and sometimes we're the victim of the things. But one thing's for sure, you can't always change the circumstances, but you can affect how you behave in the midst of it. I learned much of that the hard way, but it was a shame to me that K to 12, no one taught me how to do that. Kindergarten to 12th grade, no one ever taught me how to listen. Twice as many ears as we have mouths, but no one taught me how to listen. They taught me how to read, write, and speak. And they taught me how to take advantage of people. Because they said, you need to be persuasive. And if you make enough money, rich people get cancer too. So I made a decision, a long time after basketball ended, I became a pastor. And I held the hand of people as they were dying. And I realized, if people don't learn to lead themselves, there is no success. Not in this world. Doesn't matter how smart you are. Doesn't matter how smart you are at all. And so as I wrap this up tonight, and I keep this kind of quote in mind here, there are some they're bracelets. And they're just basically affirmations. They all say different things. I'm gonna grab one, just a random one. And this one, for instance, says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And I know we've heard that before. But in a minute, Joey's been nice enough to volunteer to kind of pass some of these out to you. And I don't care which one you grab. Or maybe tonight is the night. Maybe it's the night you begin to talk back. When I was a kid, people used to say, don't talk back. They said a lot of things when I was a kid. But here's one area where it's okay to talk back. If you don't speak to the negative voices, if self-talk doesn't become a regularity where you take control of it, what ends up happening is that the things that are dysfunctional begin to flood you and make you their slave. It doesn't matter if you're 50 years old, 60 years old, or 16. This is just what I've seen. And I've seen that one of the things I can be most aggressive about in my life is sharing. So maybe tonight is the first step. Maybe some of you like to write. You write in a diary, or you journal. Usually for men, that's a little bit harder. We don't tend to like to do that, do a lot of thinking about these kinds of things. But it's not about regret. Self-talk is not about trying to convince yourself about something that hasn't happened yet. Self-talk is about taking ownership of the control you do have and not concentrating on what you don't control. I will never control LA, but I can sure control Norman Anthony Coulter Jr. Really thank you guys for taking a minute to listen to me. The teacher in me always likes to give a minute or two for questions, but I don't know that I have time for that. So, is there probably, you say go forward? All right, so Joey, I'm gonna ask you if you want, while you're passing those out, I'm just gonna open this up, and I know I kind of introduced maybe a weird concept, but if you have questions about anything I've shared, some of the stuff is crazy, but I'm here for you. So I'll be in the back too after this is all over, but if anybody has anything they'd like to ask me, pretty much answer anything you ask. Questions about the idea of self-talk or self-leadership, and if not, it's cool. Oh, there is a question. Yes, yeah. Good question. The question is, my journey led me here, but would I change anything else if I could go back in time? And honestly, yes. I don't think any child deserves to grow up in poverty and violence. You know, my mom did a really good job. She did the best she could. But I think to prescribe danger to a child, if it can be avoided, I think it should be. So if I could change that, I would. You know, I was a little close to some things that I don't think any child should have to witness. And many of my students who are immigrants from South America, from Central America, they tell me stories, and I think that even though they are stronger because of it, I would want them to go back and do that all over again. But I'm a big believer in the present, playing kind of like the hand you're dealt. But absolutely, if I could, I would change it. But I'll tell you what I do, and I really appreciate your question. I think about what I would go back and change, and I try to pay that in full. If that makes sense. So even me being here tonight, the idea is that everyone here is an influence. So whatever you feel about your past, or whatever you feel about what you wish you could go back and change, you can't change that, but you can impact someone in front of you. Somebody who still has their life ahead of them. Great question. Well, I want to thank you again, and as these are coming around, feel free to take the one that you feel represents something that you need in your life right now. And it's been a pleasure to be with you. I'm Norman Anthony, and congratulations to you graduates. You're doing incredible things. And if I can ever be of use to you, I have some cards here that have all my social media handles and usernames and stuff, but even if it's just for the sake of staying in touch, if I can help in any way, I'm willing to do that. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.